Hello and welcome to Jump to It. Shane Anderson with you, and today's show will be focusing heavily on the Champions meeting coming from Ascot. We've got 5 brilliant races at the elite level and of course a very strong handicap on the day, but it really is an event that has built so much momentum over the past few years, and I think we're set to see some brilliant racing this weekend. Joining me to discuss that, plus a lot more, Stephen Harris and Ed Quigley with me. Stephen, good to catch up once again. Did we have some great racing last weekend, which really has whet the appetite for what should be a tremendous day of racing at Ascot on Saturday?
Yeah, we had 3 fantastic 2-year-olds, didn't we, Shane, last weekend? Inspiral, the filly, Coreobus and Native Trail. I mean, they were all sort of devastatingly impressive at short prices. And now on Saturday, this is the curtain closer, really, for the flat season. It's the 10th year of Champions Day, and this is probably going to be one of the best, I would say. And the ground, for once, isn't going to ruin it.
Ed, as I welcome you to the program, good to catch up. This sort of reinvention that has occurred, as Stephen mentioned, over the last decade with the Champions meeting, are you a supporter of the way it's now been established, or are you one of the types that preferred the old way, where we had the Champion Stakes run at Newmarket rather than Ascot?
Yeah, I do like the event as a whole. I think it's great. The problem is we've had the kind of similar debate, haven't we, in regards to the ARC of recent times. You're totally kind of in the lap of the gods, quite literally, in regards to the weather, because there's been more than one occasion where Champions Day Ascot's ended up like Foss-Lass heavy, and the field sizes have totally cut up, and a lot of the big guns have decided to swerve at 11th hour, and it's one of those where you kind of build up your Champions Day. Basically, it's a celebration of your champions, and it's at a time of year where a lot of the flat horses have already been to the well quite a lot, and perhaps coming to the end after a long season, and then you've got the imponderable, really deep ground. However, this year, as Stephen touches upon, I think it's going to be on the slow side looking at it, but it's not going to be absolutely bottomless. And yeah, I do like it. I like the day as a whole. I think it's top class racing. The ground should be fine, and it's always an exciting time for it. Naturally, Shane, my brain's already gone into national hunt mode, but nonetheless, this is a great day's racing. Really looking forward to it.
I can't believe you've slipped in a national hunt reference when we're talking about one of the great flat meetings of the year, but I'll talk more about that with you shortly. Stephen, let's go back to last weekend. You touched on some of those outstanding 2-year-old performances. Inspiral in particular, the filly winning the Filly Smile on the Friday at Newmarket. She's unbeaten. She looks very, very special. What did you make of her performance? How have you assessed it?
Yeah, I mean, I think she might turn out to be the best of the 3. It's always hard to compare the form. When she won at Sandown, the horses very rarely come up the hill at Sandown in the way that she did. She absolutely flew home, finishing full of running, and that was despite racing quite freely in the first couple of furlongs. Again, when she won at Newmarket, things didn't really go ideally for her. She was parked probably on the unfavoured part of the track, saw no daylight at all, and you're sort of thinking, is this strong run that she's coming through, is she going to be able to sustain it, having had to do it all on her own, away from where the main action was taking place? But she did. I mean, she really did look very impressive. The one who I suspect might be the best of the 2 colts is Coreobus, who's also Charlie Appleby. He's got such a strong hand. It's absolutely incredible. He's got Native Trail. I think Coreobus, who is the one who isn't unbeaten, somehow got beaten at 1.01 in running, 1 start back, was really impressive in a Group 3 at Newmarket as well. And although Native Trail obviously won the Group 1 Dewhurst and achieved a lot more on form, I wouldn't be at all surprised if Coreobus turns out to be the best of those 2.
Based on what you've seen, though, Stephen, this season, do you actually think it's a strong crop of 2-year-olds?
Yeah, I actually do. I'm normally negative and miserable and suspect that things aren't as good as they used to be 10 years ago, which might be an age thing. But I think this season that those 3 are absolutely outstanding. And interestingly, usually we've got sort of an Irish superstar. We thought that was Port Lonsdale earlier in the season, but he was brushed aside by Native Trail in Ireland. And it does look like sort of Appleby and Gosden do have the best 3 between them. And I suspect they probably are top-class horses.
Ed, what's your view of the 2-year-olds, and were you impressed by their performances last weekend?
Yeah, you couldn't not be, could you, really? I agree with echo a lot of what Stephen's saying there. There were a few eye catches in behind. It's naturally kind of ones I note into my book. Again, my old favourite filly, Concert Hall. I've been saying she'll be outpaced and get going late, and that's exactly what happened. I see she's been cut into around 16-1 for the Oaks next year, with Aidan O'Brien saying that's pretty much the route they're going to be looking down. The Musadora might be when you next see her, as the next kind of first big port of call next season. So she's definitely one to bear in mind. But yeah, Inspiral, it looks uncomplicated, gets the job done. Still looks, as Stephen makes a good point, still looks a little bit raw, a little bit, things haven't quite gone right, still a little bit quirky, but I think just so much ability under the bonnet has to be said. And Spiral going forward to next season, yeah, definitely the right favourite, shall we say, ahead of the kind of the classics for next year. And exciting times already. We're wishing time away here, looking forward to next season. But that's naturally what you do, isn't it, with the 2-year-olds at the end of the season? You're always looking ahead to what's coming next. But lots to look forward to, and some exciting fillies, put it that way.
Stephen, one of the great things that's been happening over the past few weeks has been some wonderful battles by the jockeys. We've seen Colin Keane in Ireland come out, and now he's broken the record as the most wins in a season by an Irish jockey. And then what's happening in England at the moment with this wonderful battle between Oisin Murphy and also William Buick for the jockeys title, which is coming down to the final races of the season. It's been amazing to see the way that this has really started to capture the imagination of a lot of racing fans when it's not normally something that people would really pay attention to.
Well, no, I mean, to be honest, Shane, it's something that the authorities have ruined, because they did used to be quite fascinating. I mean, I remember going back jumping with Scudamore against Frankham and Cawthon against Edery on the flat. You used to know when the season ran to and from, and there were quite clear, logical points that it started and finished. Now they've messed about with it so much. It's sort of a random start date weeks after the proper season. So yes, this does make a welcome change. I mean, I suspect I'm not alone in hoping that Buick wins in the light of recent events that perhaps we won't touch on. But Buick, he's the man with the momentum, Shane, as they say in golf, isn't he? He's absolutely fine. He seems to be riding sort of trebles and 4-timers every day. At the time of recording, he's only 2 behind. I hope it all comes down to the final day of the season and they're sort of neck and neck, slugging it out on fancied horses, because that will be a really good way to bring down the curtain on the flat season.
Yeah, I think you touched on a really good point there about William Buick. As Ed, I bring you into the conversation on this. The way he looks to be super motivated at the moment to try and get the most out of every horse he's riding, regardless of the class and the overall ability of these horses. It's fascinating to watch because he's a very tactical jockey at the best of times, but I think he's gone to a whole new level in some of the racing this week.
Yeah, indeed. It's only natural, I suppose. The adrenaline's gone up a gear, hasn't it? I think we touched upon the jockey's kind of title race about 3 weeks ago. I think it was 10 was the difference at the time. We thought, well, Oisin Murphy will kind of just coast home, etc., etc. Yeah, I got to admit, I'm not the one who normally gives 2 hoots about the jockey's title. I mean, I couldn't even tell you the last 5 champion jockeys were, to be honest with you. But I've got to admit, I'm starting to find it a little bit interesting now. And as you say, you kind of feel the pressure's gone on Oisin a little bit. William Buick's absolutely like a peacock, isn't he? Chest out, he's showing how it's done, and he's eating into that gap despite the carnage we saw a few nights ago, didn't we? Where he had a couple of horses declared non-runners at length hour and everything, a couple of withdrawals, but yeah, Buick definitely seems to have the bit between his teeth. And interesting looking at the booked rides. Close to cool, really is. Just the great thing with Buick is, of course, he's got the Charlie Appleby, the bandwagon, and we've pretty much operated around a 35% strike rate for the last 4 months, and they're still going strong now. And so, yeah, really, really fascinating. But yeah, Buick definitely, how should we say, Oisin Murphy, it looks to me he's kind of paddling water a little bit. There's echoes of kind of Garrison Savannah against Seagram kicking in here. And I wonder if Buick's going to go and absolutely nail him on the post.
Do you think, Ed, that Oisin Murphy and the drama that happened where he was stood down by stewards for failing a breath test for high alcohol reading, do you think the drama attached to that will actually impact his overall performance this week? Because he doesn't look to be riding as well as what we've seen previously.
I wouldn't have a clue, to be honest with you, Shane. I suppose it's just personal conjecture. I would doubt it, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know whether he was at the McCoys or the Leicesters or which other award ceremony, which everyone seems to cook up night by night in the racing world. But I believe he was over the legal limit to ride a horse. He wasn't over the legal limit to drive a car, but nonetheless, he was over the limit. And whether he's still got for want of a better phrase, a hangover from that, I don't know. But I don't know. I mean, it was a mishap. He said, "Look, apologise. Let's move on. We can drag these things out." He's only got to fire in a couple of winners, and it will be forgotten again. Naturally, though, Shane, as you say, we all have a good excuse. We all have a finger to point and a reason to find for things. And if Buick does go and do it, then I'm sure there'll be a little bit more come out about what exactly happened regarding that incident. But still a lot to play for. And as I say, Oisin Murphy gets the job done, all be forgotten about, and we move on.
Well, if Buick can get the title, it just adds more to a phenomenal season for Godolphin. Of course, him being the number one seed when it comes to the jockey ranks for Godolphin. Stephen, big news came through this week around one of the best horses in training, and that is Poetic Flare, the brilliant 3-year-old trained by Jim Bolger. He's had a phenomenal season, but we thought we'd see him in the Queen Elizabeth Stakes at Ascot on Saturday. He's not there, and he's now retired, despite Jim Bolger coming out saying the horse is fitter than ever. What have you made of it all?
Well, I mean, Poetic Flare's been the horse I've loved more than any horse this season, because he's been campaigned in a way that flat horses aren't campaigned in. He's run virtually every 2 weeks in all the top races, and he's been carried out on his sword on every single occasion. And all we've been saying is what a fantastic advert for Jim Bolger. I think started off on April the 11th and has run, I'm just counting them up now, how many runs he's had. I think he's had 7 runs in 6 months, basically, which is fantastic on the flat. As I say, all at Group 1 level. I thought he was a bit unlucky last time in a very messy race. And it really is a shame that he hasn't run. I mean, I do wonder if there is some underlying issue, because I'm sure Jim Bolger would want to run him in this big race. He's sure to have been suited by conditions which are drying out all the time. And it is a real pity that he doesn't run. But that's flat racing, isn't it? We've said all summer how fleeting it is. You get these superstar horses, the public latch onto them, and then they're packed off to stud. And it's happened with Poetic Flare.
Ed, I know that you were really keen on seeing the Queen Elizabeth, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later. But with Poetic Flare not there, it does rob the race of something. I'm also interested in the approach, because I think one more run would not have diminished in any way his legacy. It would not diminish his potential earnings at stud. Surely you would have, if it was yours, you'd roll the dice and run him rather than ship him straight off to Japan, where he'll be standing at stud next season.
I think that's the salient point, Shane. Yeah, the timing of it is the most interesting thing, isn't it? It's to say that the kind of quote from Bolger, only 4 or 5 days ago, was almost, we've got our chest out. He's in great form. And then it was, well, he won't run again this season. And then it was, right, he's now retired. That all kind of escalated quickly, didn't it, really? But there we go. Yeah, it's a shame. And it is the constant bugbear of mine about the flat season, much as I've enjoyed it. St. Mark's Basilica takes up a little knock. Aidan Bride says, he can easily be back next May for a Group 1 campaign. No, he's off to stud. Poetic Flare, they've obviously had a good deal to ship him off in Japan. And you see these stars and you get 4 or 5 months of them at their peak, and then they're off into the history book. So, look, he was a terrific horse. He wore his heart on his sleeve. And I do agree with you, though, Shane, in regards to the big picture with him. For goodness sake, he's a top-class individual with Group 1, form all over his CV, regardless of whether he'd won or come last at Ascot this weekend. I don't think that really would have made a big difference to anything. But, good horse, but shame we won't get to see him anymore.
It's been an outpouring of emotion over the past few days, with 3-time Grand National winning owner Trevor Hemmings passing away, Stephen, aged 86. He's had a phenomenal impact on the racing industry, of course, as an owner, with Hedgehunter, Bellabriggs and many clouds winning the Grand National. But by all reports, he played such an important role for many participants in the game. He really was a very good person.
Yeah, an amazing rags to riches story, Shane. He started with absolutely nothing. A self-made man, not an egotist. And from a punter's point of view, somebody who follows National Hunt Racing and bets on it, you could trust that his horses were always running on their merits. Now, they might have needed a run or two to get fit. There was no plots, no coups. He wasn't a gambler. They're not running out the back to get a handicap mark. They gradually progressed. And another big thing about his horses is he supported a large number of different yards. It wasn't a monopoly of power concentrated in the hands of one trainer. Donald McCain and his father before him as well, of course. Oliver Sherwood, John Joe O'Neill had horses. All the little medium-sized and top yards, the wealth was shared around, and then they were allowed to campaign the horses in the way they wanted to, rather than being directed to from powers above that does go on, certainly in some of the top yards. So he was a patient man and by all accounts, a very kind to the staff and the people who work for him. So, yeah, it's a really bad loss, actually, for National Hunt Racing. National Hunt Racing hasn't got many of these patrons, to be honest, and certainly not ones who are extremely punter-friendly in that they run their horses on their merits and you can watch them progress gradually.
Yeah, well said, Stephen. Ed, what's your reflections on Trevor and his impact on the sport?
Yeah, obviously huge, and an owner. If you when you pass away, you're synonymous with the Grand National, and I suppose you've achieved everything you need to be within the horse racing national hunt game, more specifically, don't you? But yeah, outside of that as well, of course, he, pretty much for all accounts saved Preston North End Football Club as well with his input there and his financial backing, and so yeah, he had a lot going on outside of the racing game, but he had some terrific horses. Old-fashioned stain chasers. That's what he wanted. He wanted the national types. He wanted your Gold Cup, your staying horses. Always remember Alberta's Run would have been a particular favourite of mine. The Ryanair Chase ended up being his kind of contest at the Cheltenham Festival, but him and McCoy just kind of glued perfectly. Two absolute battlers. Alberta's Run would come off the bridle about 5 out. McCoy would start shoving, but you just knew the towel was not going in. Loved good ground, loved the spring. And of course, there was Trebolgan as well, who was the horse who could have been an absolute superstar if it wasn't for injury, going back about 15 years ago. But yeah, lots of great horses, a great supporter of the game. And 86 years old, a fantastic innings and a great loss to everyone.
Oh, well said too. All right, it's now time to focus on the upcoming races for this weekend. And it can't wait, as we said earlier, for Ascot on Saturday. It's Champions Day. We've got 5 feature races, and we start with a really interesting contest. This is the Qipco British Champions Long Distance Cup at Group 2 level, worth £500,000, and it is run over 2 miles. The final field has Baron Semedy for Joseph O'Brien, currently at 8-1 with Bet365, courtesy of IrishRacing.com. Berkshire Rocco's at 14-1 for Andrew Balding. Hamish for William Haggis and Tom Marquand at 6-1. Master of Reality for Joseph O'Brien. James Doyle taking the ride at 33-1. Mirando at 50-1. Nicholas Tees at 100-1. Roberto Escobar at 25-1. The champion Stradivarius at 4-1. Frankie Dettori for John Gosden. The new star Trushan 11-8. Holly Doyle back in the saddle for Alan King. Princess Zoe's at 15-2. Takshan at Tashkhan, I should say, at 66-1. And the Mediterranean for Aidan O'Brien at 20-1. So we've got a field of 12 for the Long Distance Cup, the Stayers division. Stephen, what's your assessment?
Well, I must admit, I'm quite surprised that Trushan is such a big price, personally. This isn't a day traditionally where I'm looking to back short price horses. I don't think it's the right time of year. As Ed mentioned earlier, a lot of them have had a series of hard...
I think we've just lost the audio there, Stephen. So we'll come back to you shortly to get your assessment. So what we'll do is, Ed, we'll get your view on the Long Distance Cup now, and then we'll go back to Stephen. Give us who you think the horse to beat is.
Yeah, I would go with Trushan here. This is a horse who, Stradivarius doesn't have a fantastic record in this race, it's worth noting. Has been beaten the last 2 renewals of this, and Stradivarius has had some really tough battles this season, including obviously last time out against Trushan. I just think Trushan's the younger, the fresher horse. Ground to be fine. When it came to the hard yards last time out in France, Trushan just swatted aside Stradivarius when the chips were really down. And I think this is improving. Younger legs. Ground to be absolutely fine on the slightly on the slow side. And as I said, Stradivarius's record in this race is not kind of imperious as you'd like to think. You look at his great illustrious career, Stradivarius. This race has let him down on a couple of occasions, and I just think Trushan's got his measure now. And I would have Trushan a bit shorter in the market, and I'd be surprised if Trushan was beaten here.
All right, good push there for Trushan from Ed. Stephen, back to you. I think we've got the line sorted out. So you were saying you felt that perhaps the market might be a little bit wrong. Trushan could be value here.
Well, I think people are probably thinking the ground's going to dry out and it might not suit Trushan, but Alan King said he's not worried about good ground at all. And in fact, it does look like it might just still be on the softer side. I think at the time recording, we're on Thursday, good to soft in places on the round course. Well, I would have thought it'd be nearly good or good to soft in places at worst, given the weather forecast that that now looks like they might just get a sprinkling of a shower on Friday afternoon. But Truchan was so impressive in France, settled so well and quick and clear. The drop back to 2 miles, no issue at all. Stradivarius, we know what he is. I mean, I think Truchan has improved past Stradivarius, and we won't see Truchan beaten in these kind of races for the next 2 or 3 years. I think he's a really, really top-class stayer. The third in, Hamish, I don't fancy at all. He's a horse who's had plenty of problems. He's a prime bounce candidate. I can see how some people are sort of making each way sort of case for him, with the form against Hookham at Kempton being franked by the runner-up. But I suspect that's very muddling and misleading. And Hookham would be no certainty to stay this 2 mile trip in a proper true run race or come forwards for that first run. He was incredibly easy to back. I think he's had a lot of issues, and that turned into a messy sprint on the all-weather. I think that Hamish will be more of a double-figure price, and Truchan is likely to end up something like 11 to 10 on. So, personally, I think if you can get 11 to 8, 6 to 4 now, you'll be in a very good position by the time they jump off.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. Let's move on now to the second of the big races. This is race 2 on the card, and it's the Group 1 Qipco British Champions Sprint over 6 furlongs, so down the straight course. We've got a big field of 20 here. Ainsdale for Clifford Lees at 66 to 1. Art Power, Sylvester D'Souza in the saddle at 4 to 1. Azano is not there, I think. Might be about 100 to 1 if the latest markets are correct. Brando, who's running in the race for, I think, the 6th time. Quite a remarkable achievements at 33 to 1. Glenn Shields at 14s. Gustavos Weston at 16s. Happy Powers at 33 to 1. Frankie Dettori rides Kinross at 12 to 1. Creative Forces at 11 to 2 for Godolphin, Charlie Appleby and William Buick. Dragon Symbol, Oisin Murphy in the saddle at 7 to 2. Minzals at 8 to 1. My old mate Nando Parado, can't stick with him again. He is at a big price. He'll be about 100 to 1. Rohan's at 4 to 1. Thundermoon's at 25s. Highfield Princess at 66. Keep Busy is at around 50 to 1. Last Empire is also at 50 to 1. Happy Romance at 20s. The Dreams at 14 to 1. And Ventura Diamond is at 66 to 1. So a big field of 20 for the sprint feature. Stephen, which way do we go?
I think that this is my nap of the weekend, Shane, to be honest, Dragon Symbol. Been a really good advert for Archie Watson throughout the summer. Started off winning a couple of minor races, and then, of course, was chucked out by the stewards in the Commonwealth Cup at the Royal Meeting after a fantastic battle with Campanelle. That came on heavy ground, but for me, Dragon Symbol's just as effective on good or good to soft ground. He's run absolute blind as all starts since. He was on the wrong side of the track at Goodwood, and I think at the Curragh last time he probably ended up on the wrong part of the track, rather racing on his own up the centre. I think he's a top-class sprinter, and I think he's a grade above most of these. There's a lot of horses who are very hard to fancy in this race. I know it's a funny time of the season, but around about 5 to 1 Dragon Symbol, Murphy's booked. I think will take an awful lot of beating with any luck in running.
Yeah, you make a good case for him. Ed, give us your assessment.
Absolute head scratcher this, Shane, because I mean, you look on official figures. There's 8 horses separated by just £2. It really is trappy. I mean, the front three, you've got 9 to 2 co-favourites to 3, Art Power, Dragon Symbol, and Rohan. They're all officially rated 114. Dragon Symbol, I totally get what Stephen's saying, but it's just a horse who seems to keep finding a way to lose. You've got Rohan, who I'm just not sure is quite up to this level. He's kind of progressed, as a Wokingham winner, has come through the ranks. I suppose on the flip side is unbeaten at Ascot. Now, I'm a fully paid-up member of the Art Power fan club, but he's the kind of horse I like to back at 20 to 1 in heavy ground, taking on some really good rivals, if you see what I'm saying. Here, he's round the 4 to 1 poke, and his form figures at Group 1 Cup, he read 5-4-5, 4-4-6. He just seems to go missing when it comes to the really big day. And I don't know. I just think this is a bit of carnage, to be honest with you. I wouldn't be shocked if there was an upset. Glenn Shield really let me down in the Bengoff Stakes last time out. But he did win this race last year, and Archie Watson seemed to be kind of insinuating that race was used to get him spot on for this. He's 16 to 1. He's been there and he's done it, and he's got Holly Dore on board. And I said, in a race where you could throw a blanket over a lot of these if you were going to believe everything from a handicap mark perspective, I wouldn't be shocked if anything kind of got in the mix here. Glenn Shield's 4 times the price of Art Power, and on official figures, they basically should dead heat. So through that kind of logic, I just think Glenn Shield's probably a bit overpriced.
Okay, Glenn Shield, perhaps at a bigger price than what he should be. All right, let's move on to the next Group 1, and this is, of course, the Fillies and Mares over 12 furlongs, a mile and a half. And we've got a field of 8 chasing £500,000 in prize money. Albaflora, Ross Orion in the saddle for Rafe Beckett is 5-1 with Bet365. Tribal Craft, Oisin Murphy at 20-1. Ashada is currently 7-1 for Jim Crowley. Invite at 11-2. Lady Hayes is at 33-1. Larger Conda at 20-1. Mystery Angel at 40-1. And there we have Snowfall, currently 5-4 on, the outstanding filly, the market leader for Aidan O'Brien. Of course, Stephen, there was a bit of a shift in approach with Snowfall. She was originally going in a different direction, but with Love, unfortunately, not being able to take her place in the Fillies and Mares, Aidan O'Brien and Coolmore have elected to run Snowfall. Do you think it's the right decision?
Well, this is a real exchange horse, isn't it, Snowfall? I think opinions are going to differ. I mean, I backed her to win the Arc. I thought she was going to win the Arc for most of the race. And the German horse on the outside of her proved much stronger. I thought she curled up for pressure in the last 100 yards of the Arc. I certainly wouldn't be rushing to bet 5-4 on at this stage of the season after a series of hard races. It might well be one run too many. I've gone for Roger Varian's Ishada here, who's much more lightly raced. Now, she's got to turn around. So she beat the Ambulance home at York behind Snowfall back in August. Something wasn't right that day. She was too free early on and they eased her off. So you've got to forgive that. But her previous run over this course and distance in the Ribblesdale, she finished second. That was a cracking effort. And bearing in mind, she didn't settle there either on fast ground. I think she's a big, big runner here. Roger Varian, absolute genius. His horses are running well. She's got freshness on her side at this stage of the season. She's only had a few runs in her life, 4 in total, winning the first 2. The ground drying out's come in her favour. The dead 8, she looks quite an interesting each-way proposition at the prices.
All right, Ashada, Jim Crowley, Roger Varian for this promising filly at a big price there from Stephen. Ed, let's get your view. Are you with Snowfall or are you looking for something at a bigger price as well?
Yeah, I'd probably take her on, Shane. It's one of those. If she was 4-9 and hadn't run it on Arc weekend, I'd be like all over it, if that makes sense. But 11 days ago, she had an absolute punch-up in bottomless ground. Again, I watched replay of the Arc a couple of days ago. She travels menacingly well into the race, and then the lights go out. Ryan Moore said she just didn't pick up in that ground. It was like absolute bog. And 11 days later, trying to back it up, that she could just out her class gets her home here, if you see what I'm saying. I mean, she's got, £10 in hand of Albaflora, over a stone in hand of Invite Rashada on official figures. It could just be she runs to 90% and that's good enough. I just get very nervous, odds-on filly at the end of the season, looking at that. Albaflora was 4 lengths behind her, all admittedly well beaten when they clashed a couple of starts ago back at York. But Albaflora has been saved since then, is fresh, has course and distance form in the book and with cutting the ground, or at least ground on the slow side as well. So, I mean, she's 11-2, Albaflora. I'm finding it hard to boot her out the frame with the 8 there. I think she'll be in the mix, and the Rafe Beckett team in good form. So, I've loved Snowfall. This feels very much an afterthought, doesn't it? It sounds like Love was due to come here, still not happy with the results of the blood test, etc. And Snowfall's kind of been like last minute kind of in boxing terms, like the last minute replacement stepping in at kind of a week's notice. And just not for me at the price of Shade. She's the best filly in the race. Official figures will tell you that. A CV will tell you that. But it's who's best on the day. End of a long season, cutting the ground. Very hard race in the Arc just over a week ago. Not for me at the prices. I'm more of the kind of lay Snowfall than I am particularly blown away by anything else in the field. That would probably be my angle. If she goes shorter than 4-6, I will be hitting the lay button. I might even hit the place lay button because it could be if she throws the towel in, she'll drop out the back of the television.
Yeah, I think you both make very important points there about her and the way that we could attack that race, particularly from a laying perspective. So we'll see what happens there. Let's move on now to one of the really big ones of the day on a tremendous card of racing. And this, of course, is the Queen Elizabeth II Stakes. And a field of 10 chasing £1.1 million in prize money. And we've got this wonderful globetrotter, Ben Battle, for Saeed bin Saror and Godolphin and Pat Cosgrove taking the ride. You're getting about 14-1 with Unibet at the moment. Lord Glitters with Tudhope in the saddle at 80-1. Njord at 50-1. Tom Marquand riding for Jessica Harrington. Palace Pier, this magnificent 4-year-old Frankie Dettori for John Gosden, 13-8 at the moment. and the market leader. The Revenant is at 8-1. Olivia Pellier in the saddle. Baid, the brilliant son of See the Stars, and arguably his toughest test, now at 2-1. Lady Bowthorpe's at 16-1. Master of the Seas at 15-2 for William Buick and Godolphin. Alcohol Free, the outstanding Fillies, also at 15-2. Oisin Murphy for Andrew Balding. And Mother Earth, this very, very good filly for Aidan O'Brien. You're getting a big price for her, currently at 18-1. Stephen, give us your assessment for the QE2.
I think this will be a really big betting race, Shane, because Lord Glitters is out, by the way. He's a non-runner, but it's still fine for each way purposes. I suspect there's going to be a lot of each way sharks circling for the Revenant, I should say, who won the race last season on soft ground when Palace Pier was disappointing, lost a shoe that day. So around 9-1, the Revenant, who ran really well in France last time out. That could be some appeal. I'm going to stick personally with Baid, who's won 5 out of 5. I know that the sort of clock watchers have sort of gone cold on him. They don't think he was particularly impressive in France at 11-4 on, but I think he was just ridden to win that day. I wouldn't read anything into that. He was devastating in all his wins beforehand. He looks the real deal. Haggis has got a million top-class horses to work him with, and he thinks he's probably the best he's ever trained. He's gone to a fair price now. Palace Pier, what we've seen of him this season, he's only been workmanlike. He fell in at Ascot at a short price in a substandard race, and he was game and tough and genuine, which he is in narrow victory last time out. He's a top-class horse. He'd want the ground to dry out. I respect his claims, but I think Baid's got more upside. And just to come in finally, Shane, of course, the headline writers, the media men, will be praying that Oisin Murphy wins the Jockeys Championship on alcohol-free, because it'll make their life a lot easier, won't it, on Sunday morning?
Very good point you raised there. Ed, give us your assessment, because this is the race you've been talking up for many months now. You said potentially it was going to be the best race of the year. Are you happy with the field?
Oh, got to be, yeah. Obviously, Poetic Flare's retired and gone off to stud, but this is wonderful, isn't it? I mean, Palace Pier, absolute right up there with the best horses in the world. Baid looked like a superstar coming through. You got last year's winner, the Revenant, back for more, and then an Alcohol Free as well. Who, look, this is brilliant. Really looking forward to it. Find it hard to split the top two. I think on genuine rattling quick ground, I think Baid's definitely the faster horse compared to Palace Pier. There's probably not a lot to split them. It's Palace Pier, the old warrior. Baid coming through. Kind of where are they at each stage of their career? I suppose we don't really know. They're kind of soaking up a lot of the market, understandably. Because they're two, one exciting horse with plenty of potential, one who's established star. The Revenant, interesting, arrived when this horse won it last year, came into this meeting in a lot better form. I think it's worth noting. I mean, the Revenant hasn't actually won this season, had a very hard battle in France last time out against a horse we flagged called Real World, who's a really exciting type for going into Meydan next season for Godolphin, and had a very hard race in deep ground that day. And again, that was only kind of, 10, 12 days ago. And I just wonder whether that may have taken the edge off the Revenant. So, no, I'm with Oisin and Alcohol Free here. I'm just hoping there's enough juice in the ground for her, shall we say. I mean, when I looked at this earlier in the week, there was a lot of deluges forecast. I thought, right, we might get soft to heavy. It's not going to be kind of York good to firm, put it by any stretch of the imagination. You know, there's a shower around. It's on the slow side. And Alcohol Free, when the word soft's been somewhere in the going description, she's 3 from 3, including at Ascot. She was really good, of course, when she won the Coronation. People seem to have very short memories. Last time out, experiment at York over 10 furlongs. Obviously, she's just fell in a hole. She was far too keen. Previous to that, she looked absolutely mustard when she went past Poetic Flare like he was stood still on that occasion in the Sussex Stakes. There was plenty of give in the ground that day as well. I think she's a class act. She gets her allowances. I just hope the ground doesn't dry too much. As I said, with give underfoot, I think she's a real grinder and she'll enjoy it. Someone like Baid is a horse with a great turn of foot. And I think if this comes down perhaps to more of a battle of wills, then Alcohol Free would be the type of filly that really comes into it. Because I said, with juice in the ground, she is effective. It's a wonderful race. It doesn't quite match the arc because I think the defection of Poetic Flare has just taken the gloss off it slightly. However, yeah, this is in my top 3 races the year I'm most looking forward to. But at the value call, Alcohol Free's like 4 times the price at the top 2. I just think I like her at the prices to kind of cause the minor upset, shall we say.
All right, good push there for the Coronation Stakes winner, Alcohol Free for Oisin Murphy and Andrew Balding. Then we move on to the last of the Group 1s on Ascot's card, and this is the Qipco Champion Stakes, run over 10 furlongs, 2,000 metres, and we've got a field of 10. And it's a fantastic lineup. The defending champion, Adib, another globe-trotting star. Tom Marquand for William Haggis. I'll get that out. William Haggis at 6 to 1. El Azi's at a big price for the son of Sea the Stars. You're getting 25 to 1 for him. Yukon Glen at 66 to 1. Mishrif at 6 to 4. Brilliant winner of the Juddmonte last time out. David Egan riding for John Gosden. Adier, the Derby winner, of course, coming through the arc at 2 to 1. William Buick for Charlie Appleby and Godolphin. Bolshoi Ballets at 33 to 1 for Aidan O'Brien and Coolmore. Dubai Honours at 8 to 1, James Doyle and William Haggis. Fox's Tales at 66 to 1. McSwinney, the very good 3-year-old from Ireland, Jim Bolger, Kevin Manning at 40 to 1. And Seal Away, Mikel Barcelona, currently at 14 to 1. So that's the field for the Champion Stakes. Great to have the defending champion, Adiab, in the race, Stephen. But there really is a lot of quality all the way through, as you would hope.
Yeah, I agree, Shane. I think this is much more open than the betting suggests. I mean, at the moment, they're 6 to 4 Mishrif, 5 to 2-ish a day, or 9 to 4 a day. Well, they're betting you 5 to 2 on one of them winning. Now, I'd be putting my old bookmaker's hat on here and try and get them both beat. I think that's a very short price for horses who've had a series of hard races throughout the summer, particularly Adayar, who comes here on the back of a really good run in the Arc at Longchamp on really testing ground. This really does feel like an afterthought for him. I don't think this was in their plans at all. So he could be very weak. Mishrif, a top-class horse when the cards fall right, definitely got a quirk or two. There's no doubt about that. And I'm very wary of wide-margin York winners as a general rule of thumb. Horses do tend to stop and finish tailed off there on a regular basis. You do get some extreme results there that don't replicate themselves elsewhere for whatever reason. So 6 to 4 and 5 to 2. I'm going to tip a horse each way, Shane. You're going to absolutely hate this. It's a horse you've sacked, and I mean I fell for him last time.
No, where this is going.
Don't do it. Don't do it, Stephen.
He's a very, very high-class horse who's become a weak finishing, expensive, and he's been called plenty of names and quite rightly. But here's the difference. He's not 6 to 4 on this week. He's going to be 33. He'll probably be 50 or even bigger on the exchanges because he's a horse everybody's written off, Al Arzi. Haggis is flying. They're going to ride him, I'm hoping, like a sort of non-trier, mooching around on the bridle at the back, trying to pick up the pieces late if they go for home too soon. And I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't loom up on the bridle. Each way, you're probably going to get around 6 or 7 to 1 a place. I think it's a very good each way bet. Wait, he'll drift further. Nobody's going to fancy him. He's got loads to find on ratings. But it's just that time of year, that sort of race where the front of the market have had tough battles all summer. You might not catch them at their best, and you could get a funny result.
I don't know what to say. You've put El Azi on top in the Champion Stakes at a massive price. All right. Good luck, Stephen. That's all I'll say. I got burnt last start. I'm not going anywhere near him. Ed, what are you doing?
I want to see El Azi absolutely bolt up now. This will be funny. Probably... Isn't Adabe or Adabe a massive price here? Or am I missing something? I just again 7 to 1 against 6 to 4 and 7 to 4. An afterthought for Adayar. If you go back to the Eclipse run a couple of starts ago, Adabe was ahead of Mishrif in the Eclipse when they both chased home St. Mark's Basilica. Yep. This is a Adabe or Adib. I don't know how to pronounce this horse, but anyway, this is the William Haggis. Exactly. This is potato. This is his race, isn't it? Won it last year. There's going to be enough juice in the ground that he'd be happy. Just think he's overpriced, personally. Tom Marquand on board. Again, when I looked at this from an anti-post perspective, I was hoping the ground be absolutely bottomless, and I've actually had a few quid on at a huge price in this. Max Swinney for Jim Bolger and Kevin Manning. Of course, the Poetic Flare colours. Just again, this horse is very effective on deep ground. In fact, he's unbeaten on ground, which is soft or worse. Probably not going to get it in hindsight, but it's a horse who they've kind of tried to work out the trick with. Just did not stay, quite simply, when going up to a mile and a half earlier in the season. I think 10 furlongs is his trick. When he got 10 furlongs, he got ground like an absolute runway behind Mishrif and Love and Alenka in the Juddmonte. That just wasn't his bag. He was outpaced on really fast ground that day. I think there's enough juice in the ground here. I think he's 40 to 1. The fact Jim Bolger sends him over kind of tells you a lot of what you need to know. Bolger's been pulling rabbits out of the hat for about 3 decades in this type of race. And I just think he's a really big price. As long as there's enough juice in the ground, I think he can massively outrun his odds. He's a classic winner who enjoys give underfoot. So, yeah, I think that's a suitable trip, Max Swinney. But I am starting to talk myself into backing Potato. I think could be a decent price.
All right. It's interesting, though, that you've both gone a wide open affair sort of approach to the Champion Stakes. So Stephen with Al-Azi at a massive price, about 33 to 1. And Ed giving pushes for Max Swinney, currently around that sort of 40 to 50 to 1 mark. And also Adeb, the defending champion, at around 8 to 1. That's our look at the Champion Stakes meeting, or Champions Day at Ascot on Saturday. It's now time for Tips of the Week. Okay, Stephen, we'll start with you and we reflect on last weekend. A little loss of minus 3.5 units. Of course, Calling the Wind got the job done there, getting a return in the Cicerovic. And then, unfortunately, we had misses with Cockalorum and Bayside Boy, but you're still well ahead for the season at 51 units up. What are we doing this weekend?
I'm Bayside Boy, not a horse I'd give up on. I think he's got a lot of potential. This weekend, Shane, ordered Ascot. My best bet of the Saturday is in the 2 o'clock Dragon, symbol of Archie Watson. I think he's been extremely unlucky in all the best races, and I think he's a class above these, and around about 5 to 1 is a very fair price. The 350 we've just touched on. Al-Azi, I think, is overpriced. I think they'll ride him cold, really solid each way. But I suspect what will happen with Al-Azi is he'll come cruising up and you'll begin to get excited, and somehow he'll get done in a photo for third. He's probably favourite. And my last selection is in the Balmoral, the handicap, the 4:30, the last race on the card. Escobar, who won this contest in 2019. He ran moderately last time, but that was on heavy ground over 7 furlongs. Wouldn't have been his game. And I'm told he sweated up in the paddock beforehand, which wouldn't be him. He's got loads of really good Ascot form over a mile. Good to soft ground will be ideal. Adam Kirby's booked. He's 20 to 1, and I'm going to play each way there and hopefully find a bookmaker offering 6 places. There's 23 runners. I'm pretty confident that Escobar will run really well in the Getting Out Stakes.
All right, 3 really good angles you're playing there. So Dragon Symbol is your best for the weekend at around 9 to 2. Al-Azi, the big price each way in the Champion Stakes, and then Escobar in the Balmoral Handicap. All right, let's have a look at your performance last weekend, Ed. And as we reflect, it was a loss of only 3 units, but you're still ahead for the season at 4 units in profit, with Hell Red, Flicavoyo and Grand Sansi not getting the job done. But we have a look at who you like for this weekend. Where are you playing?
Yeah, well, I managed to back and tip, I think, the only 3 Paul Nicholls horses that I've lost in October, which was it takes some doing, to be honest with you. I think that's pretty good. But, we're alcohol-free in the QE2. I just think she's overpriced. I just hope there's enough juice in the ground. I say she looked really, really smart in the Coronation. She looked even better when she downed Poetic Flare in the Sussex Stakes. I think she's a little bit of the forgotten horse in there. So, going with her. Max Swinney's the one I'm rolling the dice with at a big price in the Champion Stakes. So this horse is a big price based on early season form. Let's not forget Max Swinney beat Poetic Flare by convincing in the end when toughing it out in Ireland. And, this is a Group 1 winner on soft ground. I just think 33 to 1 is overpriced for Bolger and Manning. And then I'm turning my attention to the jumps as well. We got the Welsh Champion Hurdle at Foss last. Ballyandy chased home runaway winner Sir Royale last year. Gets into this year's contest off a £3 lower mark. Has to defy top weight, but his handicap to go well on last year's renewal. And then on Sunday, the horse I really will be disappointed if it gets beaten this weekend is Silver Streak at Kempton in the listed hurdle. This horse absolutely loves Kempton, loves good ground. It's only ever lost once at that track. That was when chasing home former champion hurdle winner Epiton. If that horse manages to not get that job done there, then we really are in trouble. So, a bit of everything this weekend. But, alcohol-free. The headlines will write themselves after Oisin comes home on that one. And, just really looking forward to it.
All right, 4 good selections there from Ed. Ballyandy, Silver Streak in the jumps. And, of course, at Ascot, we have alcohol-free and also Max Swinney at a big price. All right, Stephen, what are you looking forward to the most this weekend? Is there one race that is above all at Ascot that's going to really intrigue you?
Well, I think the 310, I'd really like to see Bayard prove he's the real deal and make it 6 from 6. And another William Haggis horse in the 350, the old rogue, Alazi, swooping late, Shane, at a huge price to give the bookmakers a real result and hopefully reward each way support.
I'll be curled up in a corner crying if that's the case, but good luck to you. Ed, give us your one race, I suppose, above all, that you're looking forward to the most this weekend.
Yeah, I'd be a proper fraud, wouldn't I, if I jump ship now for the QE2. That's definitely the contest. Baid, Poetic Flare, alcohol-free. I kind of see Baid. I think they want to push the buttons at the last minute with that horse. I expect alcohol-free and Palace Pier, I should say. I expect them to be toughing it out. Baid waiting to pounce, to utilise that turn of foot. It should be a really exciting race. Really, really looking forward to that one. Outside of the arc, the race I most look forward to this season.
Great work with you both. Good luck this weekend, guys. There we have it, Stephen Harris and Ed Quigley with their thoughts on what is going to be a wonderful weekend of racing. Of course, you can head to bettingexpert.com and get Stephen Harris's tips for racing in the UK each and every day with his best bet and his value bet for racing throughout England and the United Kingdom. And of course, head to irishracing.com for all the latest news, form, cards, betting information and great opinion pieces. Vincent and the team do a fantastic job. That's all from us on Jump to It this week. We'll see you again next week.